The first realization that awakens within a person at the age of 40 is the understanding that life has never truly been about chasing something outside of themselves. For decades, many people run after ideals that society plants into their minds: success, recognition, security, perfection, believing that these goals will finally bring them peace. But as one reaches 40 with a more awakened heart, there is a moment of stillness where everything slows down and a deeper truth begins to surface. It becomes clear that all the striving, all the rushing, all the attempts to become someone else were never necessary to begin with. The peace they were looking for was always inside them, quietly waiting to be noticed. At this point in life, one begins to see that the world is not a battlefield to conquer, but a rhythm to understand. Instead of pushing against reality, there is a gentle shift toward flowing with it. Things that once felt heavy now seem lighter because the awakened soul no longer interprets challenges as personal attacks. The events of life are seen simply as movements in a grand symphony, sometimes rising, sometimes falling, but always guiding them toward greater depth. What once created frustration now inspires curiosity. What once felt like failure now feels like redirection. This realization also brings a sudden release from the invisible weight of expectations. For years, individuals may carry the burden of trying to satisfy everyone around them, believing they must achieve certain milestones to be worthy or successful. But as they step into their 40s with a clearer sense of self, they begin to understand the futility of living according to others' definitions. They no longer feel compelled to fit into a mold that was never shaped for them. Instead, they begin to ask themselves what they genuinely want, what truly matters, what brings them alive, and in this questioning they find freedom. Another part of this awakening is the ability to look back at the past with a softer heart. Mistakes that once felt painful are now seen as essential stepping stones. The soul recognizes that every setback carved wisdom into their being, every disappointment nudged them toward a better direction, every heartbreak opened them to deeper compassion. Nothing was wasted, nothing was meaningless. Even the hardest moments were preparing them for the clarity they hold today. This perspective changes everything, because it dissolves regret and replaces it with appreciation. At 40, the awakened soul stops rushing. They stop trying to catch up with anyone. They no longer feel behind because they realize there is no competition in a life that is uniquely theirs. They begin to savor time rather than chase it. They understand that presence is far more valuable than achievement. They learn to breathe fully, live slowly, and trust deeply. And with this trust, life becomes less of a struggle and more of a dance in which they finally know the steps, not because they learned them, but because they remembered them. Here is the ***5, 100, word expansion of the second keynote ***, smoothly written, without headings, and without mentioning him. There comes a moment in life, often around the age of 40, when a person suddenly gains the ability to look back at their past with a new kind of vision. What once appeared as a collection of mistakes, heartbreaks, and losses transforms into a meaningful pattern. The experiences that used to feel like heavy burdens begin to reveal their hidden purpose. Instead of carrying regret, the soul starts to understand that every difficult moment served as a teacher, shaping strength, wisdom, and resilience in ways that comfort never could. It becomes clear that nothing was truly wasted. The delays that once felt frustrating were actually guiding them toward better paths. The relationships that fell apart were clearing space for healthier connections. The failures that stung deeply were redirecting them toward opportunities that aligned with their true nature. With this understanding, a deep softness arises within the heart. The person realizes that they did the best they could with the awareness they had at the time. There is no longer a need to criticize themselves for choices that didn't work out the way they hoped. Instead, there is gratitude for the lessons these choices brought. Every heartbreak becomes a reminder of how deeply they are capable of loving. Every disappointment becomes evidence of how much they dared to hope. Every setback becomes a mark of how many times they were willing to try. This shift in perspective brings an unexpected freedom. The past no longer feels like a weight, but like a collection of chapters that were necessary to build the character they now possess. They begin to see that growth often emerges from discomfort. Strength is shaped through adversity. Compassion is born from sorrow. They understand that without these experiences, they would not have the depth they now carry. The soul becomes quieter, calmer, and more accepting because it sees meaning where it once saw chaos. As this realization deepens, something beautiful happens. Forgiveness. Forgiveness toward themselves and toward others. They no longer demand perfection from the person they once were. They no longer hold grudges against people who hurt them. They understand that everyone was acting from their own level of consciousness, just as they were. This forgiveness does not excuse the pain they endured, but it releases them from the grip of resentment. It allows them to step into the present without being chained to old wounds. This transformation brings a powerful sense of clarity. They begin to trust the timing of their life. They stop comparing their journey to others, because they now see that every soul grows at its own pace. They no longer panic when things don't go according to plan. Instead, they trust that even the unexpected has purpose. They realize that life has been orchestrating their growth all along, often through moments they didn't understand at the time. By embracing this perspective, they reclaim their power. They move forward with confidence, knowing that whatever comes their way will ultimately shape them into an even wiser version of themselves. This is the quiet, profound peace that emerges when the past is no longer an enemy but a guide. Here is the **500 word expansion of the third keynote **, written smoothly without headings and without mentioning him. One of the most liberating realizations that arrives around the age of 40 is the understanding that much of life's heaviness was created by the silent expectations placed upon one's shoulders. For years, many people move through life trying to meet standards that were never truly theirs. They carry the weight of cultural norms, family beliefs, societal timelines, and even the dreams of their younger self, which often no longer match who they have become. As they awaken to their true nature, they begin to feel these expectations slowly loosening their grip, revealing the possibility of a life shaped by authenticity rather than obligation. This shift does not happen suddenly. It arrives like a gentle breeze, a subtle inner voice that whispers, "You no longer need to pretend." The moment this voice becomes undeniable, a powerful transformation takes place. A person begins to recognize how much energy they once poured into being accepted or approved by others. They recall how often they silenced their own desires to maintain an appearance, to avoid judgment, or to fit into a role that made others comfortable. But with newfound clarity, they realize that living for others is the surest way to lose themselves. This awareness leads to a deep inner awakening. They stop feeling pressured to reach milestones by certain ages. They stop comparing their journey to others who appear ahead. They recognize that everyone is following a different path, and theirs is meant to be unique. When this understanding sinks in, the soul becomes lighter. There is a feeling of relief, the kind that comes when you finally exhale after years of holding your breath. Letting go of expectations also changes the way they relate to their own dreams. Instead of chasing goals just because they were taught to, or because society glorifies them, they start questioning what truly matters to them. They begin to differentiate between desires that were inherited and desires that are authentic. This creates a powerful shift from external validation to internal fulfillment. They no longer ask, "What will others think?" but instead, Does this feel right for my soul? As they continue shedding layers of imposed identity, they find themselves becoming more honest, first with themselves, then with the world. They start saying no, without guilt, understanding that a single honest no holds more integrity than 1,000 forced yeses. They begin choosing rest over exhaustion, truth over approval, peace over perfection. And with each choice, they reclaim a piece of themselves that was once lost under the weight of expectation. This freedom allows them to live more openly and courageously. They discover that authenticity attracts the right people, the right opportunities, and the right paths. By refusing to be shaped by external demands, they finally create a life that reflects their true essence. And in doing so, they step into a deeper sense of self-respect, one that cannot be shaken by opinions or norms. This is the moment when life begins to feel truly their own, not borrowed, not performed, but lived. Here is the *500-word expansion of the fourth keynote **, written smoothly without headings and without mentioning him. There comes a stage in life when the inner voice, once quiet and easily ignored, becomes the clearest guide a person has. Around the age of 40, this shift becomes almost undeniable. After years spent listening to the noise of the world, opinions, expectations, judgments, and advice, a person begins to recognize that the only voice capable of leading them toward true fulfillment is the one within. This realization does not arrive with force. Instead, it emerges like a calm but steady truth rising to the surface. It becomes impossible to silence, and with this awakening, they begin to trust themselves in ways they never had before. This inner voice is not loud. It doesn't shout or demand. It whispers, it nudges. It speaks through intuition, a gentle pull toward what feels aligned and a subtle discomfort around what doesn't. For years, this voice may have been overshadowed by fear or insecurity, drowned out by the desire to please others or to avoid criticism. But as a person steps deeper into self-awareness, they realize that ignoring this voice led them into paths that drained them, relationships that dimmed them, and decisions that didn't reflect who they truly were. At 40, they finally begin to understand that intuition has been their most loyal companion all along. It never lied, it never misled them. It always knew when something wasn't right, even when their mind tried to justify it. This realization builds a new kind of confidence, one not based on achievements or external success, but on self-trust. They start to rely on their own inner wisdom, recognizing that no one else has lived their experiences, felt their emotions, or carried their dreams. No one else can know what is meant for them better than they do. Trusting this inner voice creates profound changes. They stop seeking constant reassurance from others. They no longer feel the need to ask for permission to live their truth. Instead of doubting themselves, they begin to ask deeper questions. What feels right for my spirit? What brings me genuine peace? What path makes me feel alive rather than drained? These questions become their compass. And as they follow the answers, life begins to feel more aligned, more purposeful, and more natural. With this trust comes a new clarity about relationships, opportunities, and boundaries. They feel when someone is genuine and when someone is not. They sense when a door is meant to close, rather than forcing it open out of fear. They understand the difference between temporary excitement and true inner resonance. And because of this clarity, their decisions become simpler. Not easier, but clearer. They no longer choose based on pressure or expectation. They choose based on truth. This connection to intuition also brings a sense of peace. They stop overthinking every step. They stop worrying about outcomes they cannot control. When the inner voice says go, they go. When it says wait, they wait. When it says let go, they release. This surrender is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the understanding that life flows better when guided from within rather than forced from fear. By trusting themselves, they enter a deeper partnership with life. They learn to listen, to feel, and to flow with what is meant for them. And in doing so, they finally begin living in alignment with who they truly are. Here is a powerful conclusion for your speech, written in the same tone and flow. In the end, the journey of reaching 40 with an awakened mind is not about age at all. It is about clarity. It is about finally seeing life without the fog of fear, pressure, and expectation. It is the moment when a person realizes that everything they were searching for was already within them. The peace they were chasing, the confidence they longed for, the wisdom they hoped to gain, they were all quietly growing beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to rise. By understanding the purpose of their past, releasing the weight of external expectations, and trusting the voice that speaks from within, they step into a new chapter of life, one built on presence, not pressure, on meaning, not noise, on truth, not performance. This is the freedom that comes when the soul finally awakens to its own strength. Reaching this stage is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a more conscious, grounded, and authentic existence. It is the point where a person stops living by default and begins living by intention. Life becomes less about proving something and more about experiencing everything with an open heart. And so, the awakened soul steps forward with a new sense of peace, carrying the wisdom of the past, the clarity of the present, and the courage to shape the future. They no longer fear time passing. They walk with it. They no longer doubt their path. They trust it. And in that trust, they discover the beautiful truth. Life begins the moment you finally understand yourself,